What is going on, everyone? This is Ryan with Automatic Comics. I've been seeing a lot of posts recently, posts and videos, some saying the comic market is going up, some saying it's stabilizing, some say it's going down. And I'm here to tell you it's actually all of them. So that's what I want to talk about today, especially a tool that you can use to help you kind of track and follow the comic market. So the post that I saw that I want to talk about first, just kind of get into this, was this Tomb of Dracula 10 CGC 9.8 sale. This is a post by RH Midwest Comics. If you don't follow them on Instagram, make sure you go give them a follow. This was a sale on Comic Link, so it will not get pulled into GPA. Those sales don't get pulled into GPA or GoCollect, any of that. But still a sale that happened. So we had this Tomb of Dracula 10, 9.8 that sold for $12,505. And here he says, even Blade succumbing to the ever-dropping comic book market, lowest 9.8 white page sale since 2020. This is from the most recent Comic Link auction, so you won't see it in GPA. That is true. Wasn't the lowest sale of the year, but lowest sale white page. So we jump over to GPA. This is GP Analysis, one of the tools that I use. I looked up Tomb of Dracula 10, and we go down and we look at the 9.8s. So with the 9.8s here, you can see that we did have an $11,700 sale. This was on Heritage. This was an off-white to white page copy, though. And we had multiple sales this year. I mean, for a 9.8 white page copy, or 9.8 copy of Tomb of Dracula 10, a lot of sales. You see, we had an 18,000, 16.8, 15.6, 15.6, 15, 11.7. This is 6 sales in 2025 alone, and we are only in March. Look at how many sales previously. So I heard there was someone found a collection that, or one of the collections that's been found that had like 29 eights or something like that, like 15 to 20. So it really juiced the census. So that could be why we're seeing a lot of these pop up. But obviously when you have a bunch of these come up for sale, it is going to drive the price down, but that's not the only thing here. So with Tomb of Dracula 10, I mean, look at the price changes for this book. So in 2020, you had a $10,200 sale and a $12,000 sale. In 2019, we had a $7,200 sale and a $15,000. 2018, $6,000. Like every time below that, it's quite a bit less. So the issue here to me, because I remember talking about, I think I did a video on this $18,000 sale where I made a comment that I was like, that's a crazy number. Like I never would pay that number. And so, because you can look at where this book has been and where it is, where it seems like it's heading compared to everything else in the market. So this book being like, let's say 8 or 9,000 before the comic boom, you know, kind of going between the 7 and 12, jumped to 48,000. And everything else we see that's like modern, copper, silver, for the most part, is generally trending back down to around the 2020, 2019 prices. So if it's me, I'm not touching that book until it's down around 8 to 10,000. And I know that's really hard for people to stomach. You know, they see the book dropping and they think like, oh, I'm getting a deal. But no, you aren't. You're catching that falling knife. And so in this case, like you look at this, you see the prices before the boom, you see the prices where it got to, and you see it trending down, just wait. There's no reason to buy that book. Like this person that bought at the beginning of the year, they're already down like $6,000. This person that waited and thought they're like, oh, I got a deal, they're down $4,000. You know, it's like, just wait when these books are still overpriced. So that's what I'm talking about there. Like there are definitely books that are still overpriced and still dropping. But one way you can really see this, and you can dive into the books, if you're really interested in looking at picking up some books and getting an idea where each of them are, and you don't necessarily want to do all the checking, there's a great resource that is on GoCollect. And so GoCollect has what they call their collectible price index. Now, if you watch Swagglehouse Comics, he does his comic book index every month where he's going over silver, bronze, copper. I don't think he does modern, but silver, bronze, and copper age books. And so this is basically something that's relatively similar, but you actually can also dive into what creates those numbers a little more. So you can see each individual book. So just something that, I mean, to me, this alone is worth the price of admission for GoCollect. And they go into all the details here if you want to see this, but we're going to go into the specific charts. If you want to see how they put everything together, they provide all that information here. They're pretty open about how all of this is put together. But let's jump into the different eras, because what you can see here is that they've got this, you know, we're on the collectible price index right here. And You can see they do modern, copper, bronze, silver, golden, and big spenders club. Now, I believe the reason they pull out the big spenders club is because they can have such a huge impact on everything else, and they don't sell nearly as often, but they wanted a way to track it. I believe Mickey also pulls out those big books so that they don't influence the index too much. So they're doing something relatively similar there. But this is where you can see that you've got pretty different trends depending on the era and the type of books that are selling. Now, right here, I'm just showing the past year. When you're looking at this high level view, that's the furthest back you can go. But when you go into each individual one, you can go back 10 years. So you can see a really good picture of what's been happening with the collectibles market. So we're just going to take a quick look at each one of those. So the first thing we're going to go check out is the modern. So we're going to jump over into the modern. You can see here that I've actually expanded it to show the full range of data that they have. So you can go to all time, 5 years, 1 year, 6 months, 3 months, past month, that kind of thing. And so you can see they actually give you all the books that they use to make up that modern index. And it's just a range of all kinds of different types of keys that are generally popular in that era. You can see the same thing here when you go to copper, very similar. You've got all the big keys there. And so the thing that you can see that I really like is, well, there's a couple things. One, you can see that general trend. So leading up to the comic boom, and I know some people say that the boom started in 2018. I don't personally really buy that. I mean, it started in 2020. Like that's really like, I mean, you can see it pretty clearly. Like it started in mid 2020. Generally, it was kind of, you've seen it a lot around like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That kind of stuff is where it really kicked off. But yeah, I know there's a little bump there, but there's always little bumps. But this is the big bump. But when you follow kind of what I've been doing, and I've shown this before, you follow that kind of that general trend, and you see that on average, things have been trending up long term. And if you carry that forward, you can kind of see that, yeah, I guess with the modern era, it does feel like, maybe it's getting to where it might have been if that comic boom hadn't happened. But still, what we're seeing is that we are seeing things generally return back to around these 2020, 2019 prices. And if you look at this CPI value, the value they calculate for the index, back in 2019, 2020, it was around 2,800 to 2,900. It's currently at 3,900. So it's still about 30% high. So to me, I'm generally, on average, for modern, I am not rushing out to buy those books. But it's not just a blanket statement like that. And that's where when you look at things where people are talking about different books and why it can be confusing, because you can have situations where, yes, you can say everything is still overpriced, because from that, it kind of looks like everything's still overpriced. But if you go down and dig into the individual numbers a little bit, there are books that are going up now. There are books that are still trending down. And there are books that seem like maybe they're at a good point to start picking up. So, for example, one that is definitely still trending up that gets talked about all the time is Invincible #1. The Invincible series is super hot right now. The way I would probably treat Invincible is very similar to what you see with Walking Dead. Walking Dead followed a pretty defined cycle around the TV series or the seasons that dropped. And so with Invincible, we just had the end of a season. And I wouldn't be surprised if you see maybe some drop. But if we're going to get a lot of seasons of this show, it feels like we're going to get quite a few seasons. It probably has a pretty good long-term trend, at least while that show is being made. I wouldn't buy it right now. And again, this is just what I'm basing on, what I see here. It's not recommendations to go out there and buy books. I probably wouldn't be buying this book right now, but if you saw a dip like you used to see with Walking Dead, maybe it's a safer time to pick it up. Walking Dead, it is trending down. I know a lot of people think that this is kind of one of the new modern grails, and so they think it's a great purchase long-term regardless, but it's hard to say. Was it completely driven by the shows? Maybe, I don't really know. But you can see it's still trending down. You might want to wait. Maybe it gets down around these types of prices again. So you can see that one's still elevated. Books like this, where, I mean, look at this. This is that first appearance of Ahsoka Tano. I mean, still massively elevated over its pre-boom prices. I'm not going to touch that book. NYX #3, it's kind of getting back down there. You can see pre-comic boom, this value was like 160 to 170. It's now right here at 181 was the low, most recent low. So it's getting down around where you might want to look at it. But then you can go through each one of these books. I'm not going to talk about each book. And you can kind of see what each one has done. If they've, like you can see Something is Killing the Children has been pretty stable for, almost 2 years, a little over 2 years. Like, so even though it's still very elevated, does that mean that this one has proven itself that that's kind of its price point, that it's going to be stable at? Maybe you're comfortable buying it then. But when I see, like, you just kind of keep going through this, like some of these, they've come all the way back down. Some of them have generally trended up. It's not just some blanket statement that you can say about every book. Every book is very, very different. You see some things that are similar, but you see some things where you just go, yeah, like Preacher #1, you can probably buy that now if you want. It doesn't look like it's going to do anything. This was probably the show right here, and then it's just been flat for years. You've got Why the Last Man. The show was kind of a failure, and it's just trended down. Just over and over, you can look at all these books if they're ones that you're interested in. Now let's move on to the Copper Era. And you can see Copper Era still very, very elevated compared to what it was pre-boom. Pre-boom, it's like 520. Currently, it's at 865. That's like 70% up still. That's the type of stuff where I just go, don't really need to rush out to pick up those books. But it's not every book. Again, it's going to be on a case-by-case basis. You can see Evil Ernie. It's maybe just started a downtrend. You've got Raphael with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1, still very elevated. You've got Caliber Presents trending down. You've got New Mutants 98. It's still very elevated from where it was, and it seems like it's probably still trending down. Let's see. Is there anything like The Tick? This looks pretty safe. Look at this. It had a huge spike in 2018, and it's just been flat ever since. Probably a pretty safe book to pick up. G.I. Joe, this actually looks like it's been trending slightly up for about the last 2 years. That tells me maybe G.I. Joe #1, reasonable book to pick up, whereas something like Sandman #1, I'm going to stay away from. It's still trending down. Thundercats #1 still looks like it's kind of trending down. Probably going to stay away from it. So this is just one of those places where you can go to check out to see, like, yeah, to me, on average, Copper Age, still very, very overvalued. But within that, there are books that seem like they're probably either safe to buy or getting to the point that they're safe to buy. All right, now let's move on to the Bronze Age. So Bronze Age here, prior to the comic boom, about 650, 700. We are currently at 1,125. That's, again, like 60%. 60 to 70% elevated from where it was. And you're going to have to look at it on a case-by-case basis again. To me, there are going to be books that are still trending down, and there are books that have proven themselves that they just seem like they want to go up. Look at this. Batman 227. Yeah, it went up some, had a little spike during the comic boom, but it's just been constantly going up throughout that time, throughout the last 4 or 5 years. And so, like, Batman 227, probably relatively safe to buy. It's probably still going up, but you don't know for sure. Same thing. Look, Batman 251, like those classic key covers, like those ones doing really, really well. Amazing Spider-Man 129, though, looks like it's still heading down. It's first Punisher. I know there's hype right now around it, but that downward trend, that type of stuff makes me nervous. Tomb of Dracula 10, just talked about. Look at that. I'm not touching that. It's still trending down. Why would I want to pick up a book like that when I could go after something that feels more comfortable, that's been trending up? I don't want to catch the falling knife. Scooby-Doo #1, just regularly trending up for the last 10 years. It's just, you've got to check out each book on a case-by-case basis. X-Men 101 looks like it's generally trending down. I know the 9.8 seems to be strong, but everything else seems to be trending down some. Let's take a look. We can even look at the individual grades. Like, look at this. The 9.8 actually does trend down a little bit, but not maybe as much as some of these others, like the 9.6, the 9.4. Some of these have started to level out. So there might be individual grades that are good to go after. Like, this is the type of information that you have here that is really, really useful. And so, again, to me, Bronze Age, super overvalued at this point. But within it, there are definitely books that look like they are becoming a little more appealing. Like Giant Size X-Men 1 here. This one, let's see, for the last little over a year has been kind of even maybe trending up a little bit. I mean, look at it hit a low of about 65.97 and it's now at 72. It's like, is that long enough for me to make that decision that I want to buy it? Probably not. But that's the type of stuff I'm looking for. I want to see things start to trend back up again. And yeah, if you want to take the stance that everything is dropping, I don't think you can, but you can definitely make the stance that there are still lots of things that are trending down. All right, now let's move on to Silver Age. So Silver Age, prior to the comic boom, looks like around 1250 for that value. Right now, 1715. I mean, again, we're at about 35% above where it was during that comic boom. And this is why I'm not shocked when I see some of these books still dropping in price. Like, it doesn't surprise me because they were so elevated, and it takes a while for that stuff to come down because everybody keeps thinking they're getting a deal when in reality, the next one's going to come up and the next one's going to come up, and it's not going to recover until it gets back down to that point of where it's just too cheap. But here you can see there are definitely books that have been on a general uptrend, mostly DC. I think that's kind of interesting. Like Adventure 247, look at that, general uptrend. Batman 121, it did have a big spike, but it's been pretty stable since then. Action 242, general uptrend. Action 252, general uptrend. I think that's kind of interesting that we've got the DC books look like they've been just gradually increasing. Showcase 22, whereas you've got the Marvel books where they had the big spike and they've corrected. Now, like, this is another one, like Fantastic Four 5, First Doom. I mean, you've got everything with Doom and the MCU that could maybe help this one, but look how elevated that is from where it was prior to the comic boom. This CPI value of around 84, 85, it's up at 181, over double. Like, I'm not touching that book. There's no way I feel comfortable buying that book when it is that much above where it was. I will just wait. I will happily wait and see what happens longer term before I touch that book, instead of potentially eating like a 50% loss. That's just not something I'm interested in doing. And we've got Tales to Astonish 27. You see, it's still trending down. First Ant-Man, it's trending down there. We got Tales to Astonish 13 trending down. We've got Incredible Hulk #2 trending down. But then we've got Amazing Spider-Man 2. Look at that. It's been pretty consistently going up. I mean, first appearance of the Vulture looks like it's maybe a safer book to buy than some of these other ones. Interesting. Our Army at War, First Sergeant Rock, I think that's what that one is, gradually trending up. I think that's pretty interesting. Like, that one didn't seem to be really impacted by the boom, and it's been constantly going up. Then look at these. Amazing Spider-Man 3, down. Journey Mystery 85, First Loki, down. So it really is a case-by-case basis. This, wow, like that one makes me think, like, first appearance of Doctor Strange, Strange Tales 110, prior to the comic boom, around 40. It's all the way back down there. It's like 45 versus where it was before 40, maybe 10% over where it was. That's the type of book that I'd be watching. It is still on a downtrend. You can see that, but that's the type of book that I'd probably be watching to see, like, maybe it's getting to the point where it might be good to start picking up. Fantastic Four #4, still kind of on that downtrend. But let's see if there's anything else here that really jumps out. Here's a DC book that doesn't seem to be doing as good. Green Lantern #1. It's trending down. We've got the Flash 123. Look at that. Another DC just going up long term over time. Batman 181. It is trending down. That is one of the books that went crazy. First Poison Ivy during the comic boom. So I'm not really surprised by that. A lot of the DC books took a little more muted price change, but 181 did not. It had that like 9.8 sale for like 90 or 100,000. But again, you can see these Silver Age books. Some of them, to me, look like they are at a position where you might want to start considering them again, but other ones, definitely not. You just want to stay away from. They're still elevated. I mean, let's see. There's another one that was interesting. Yeah, here, like Iron Man #1. Like, look at that. It's well above where it was. It's like 5.5, but then after the boom, it dropped down to a low of around 7.7, and now it's up at 8.84. So is Iron Man #1 starting to trend back up? That's the type of stuff I'm looking for, right? That's the type of thing that really interests me, that catches my attention when I start to see the prices trend back up. That's what I've been waiting for. And obviously a lot of books are still going down, but some of them like this, trending back up. All right, now let's move on to the golden age, because this is where we start to get to some really different results than what we've seen with everything else. So here's the golden age. I mean, look at that. It doesn't have that huge spike across the board. It has just generally trended up for the last 10 years. I mean, look at how different that is. I mean, let's jump back to these other price indexes so we can see at the top here. I mean, modern, huge jump. Copper, huge jump. Bronze, huge jump. Silver, a little bit less of a jump, but still a pretty big jump. And then you got golden age. Nice and smooth line. I mean, I love golden age books, and so I don't want it to come across like I'm just like pushing, the thing that I like. But this is one of the other things that is very appealing to me with golden age books. They do seem to be a little more consistent, a little more stable. I consider it kind of like the blue chip type, stock market type thing. I know people don't like you comparing things to the stock market and all that, but this is one of the things I like about the golden age. It feels more stable. And one of the big reasons for that is there are a lot less of those books out there. When you had big jumps in price for a modern era book, what happened was the people that had them raw got them graded, and it floods the market and it drags the price back down. When there's only 50 copies or 20 copies or 100 copies of a book, you can't flood the market. There are little instances where maybe somebody gets a big sale on one book and you see like 2 or 3 come out and it brings it down like a little bit, but that's about the extent of what can happen. It's not like with that first White Vision, where there were something like 200 copies on the census, or I think it was like 209/8 or 109/8 on the census when WandaVision came out. And then now there's like 2,009/8. Like, that's the extremes you can see in those more modern eras versus the golden age. But let's take a look. Let's take a look at little things, because there are some books that obviously had big jumps. I mean, Punch Comics number 12, you can see it started ticking up as one of the books that people really wanted to collect from that era. It's one of the books I have. I love that book. Let's find some others, like Adventure Comics 40. Sandman has gotten really popular. It had a big jump and then it's kind of gradually ticked up. But most of the books, it's this gradual trend. I mean, yeah, they may be increased in speed a little bit, like this one, Mass Comics number 1, another big one, another one of my favorites that had a pretty big turn up. Chamber of Chills 19 had a pretty big turn up. But when you average it out over a lot of books, you can see it's just this general uptrend that you see almost across the board. It's not going to be, it's not everything. There can be drops in prices. We see drops in prices sometimes in golden age books too. There's always going to be fluctuations up and down. But when you look at the general average trend for these golden age books, this is what you see. Just this general slope upwards, where prior to the comic boom, this value was 3,666 and it's now 4,904. It didn't really increase the rate of return during that period. Now, yes, there are some books that did. I mean, you can't deny that. But even the ones that did, they've generally been pretty consistent after their spike. Like this Adventure Comics 40 jumped up and then it was consistently either flat or slightly trending up. And so, yeah, that's just one of the things I like to talk about. One of the things I really like about the golden age, and one reason why I like those books. Now, the last one we're going to talk about is the Big Spenders Club. Now, this one I thought was really interesting because it really does correspond well to what I've seen when I've been watching the major comic auctions, and that's Heritage, Comic Link, that kind of thing. Not their weekly sales, but the ones where they've got the big books. And in those auctions, I've generally seen that they've stayed relatively strong. And it's not across the board. And you got to remember, like with these types of sales, they're not going to move nearly as fast. You're probably going to have some stuff lost in the noise a little more easily. But I mean, look at this. So yes, it definitely experienced the comic boom, but then it didn't correct back down on average. Some books did, but on average did not correct back down and has continued to just slightly trend up. And so that's one of those things that I've really noticed too, is that I just continue to see pretty decent strength in the higher end. And this, for the most part, confirms that. Now we can go take a look at individual books. It's not true for everything. But so like, for example, we can see Superman #1, it had this big spike and it's started to trend down a little bit. We do see Superman 1 come up for sale quite a bit, it seems. And so that could be part of the reason. Let's see if there's any others that have trended back down any. Like Journey into Mystery 83, that first Thor, like the Silver Age books, those ones maybe taking a hit a little bit more. You can see that trend down there with Journey into Mystery 83. Thought it was interesting that I didn't see that with Amazing Fantasy 15, even though I have seen prices drop. And I'm guessing that's maybe an artifact of how these are calculated, because you can see like the really high end stuff, it is because they don't sell very often, still have these, their last sales are relatively high. Whereas the lower end, you can see that they did have these corrections. And I just wonder if maybe that's overwhelming all the other sales. That could be. And so I do think that that one does seem like maybe you have an artifact from the fact that the really high end ones are overwhelming the lower. But we keep scrolling down here and you can just see on average, these big books still for the most part trending up. I mean, you've got a mix of Golden Age, Silver Age, that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, oh, and yeah, here's the one that definitely has been trending down. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1. And now that's because it's a Copper Age book. It's going to sell more often. You're going to have a little cleaner data for that book. But yeah, I thought that this was pretty interesting to see because it really does correspond with what I've noticed when I've been watching the big comic auctions, is that, yeah, they had those big spikes in prices and now they seem to be kind of just fluctuating up and down around relatively similar numbers. It's been pretty stable. So, I mean, the big takeaway here is that if you want to make a video that says the comic market is crashing, you can do it. If you want to make a video that it's going up, you can do it. If you want to make a video that says it's stable, you can do it, because that is the case. If you look at individual little pieces of the market, because some pieces are stable. Big Spenders Club, the big books, pretty stable. Some pieces are still going up and are still very strong. Golden Age. Some pieces are still falling down. When you look at silver, bronze, copper, and modern, they still feel overvalued. But even within those, there are some that are strong, like Invincible #1, and some that look like they're still very, very overpriced and dropping, like this Clone Wars #1. So if you'd like to dig into this a little bit more, you know, if you're looking to pick up any big books from any of these eras, this is a really useful source of information. It just puts it all there together for you. And like I showed, like you can even look at individual grades and see how each of those individual grades are performing, because it's not going to be the same necessarily across all grades. But hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully you got something out of this. Hopefully it helps you in, you know, your analysis of the comic market and your decisions on future purchases. If it did, please hit that like button, subscribe button, notification bell, and I will see you on the next one.